Hello, Trombone Internet. This is Chris Van Hoff, assistant to the regional manager of the International Trombone Festival. We at the festival, of course, are huge fans of the pod, and we are really excited to invite you to attend this year's 2024 International Trombone Festival at TCU in Fort Worth, Texas. Dave Begnosh is our host. We have the world premiere of a brand new double concerto for trombone and piano with the Fort Worth Symphony. We have the American Brass Quintet. We have late night jazz featuring a Latin jam session. Like, everything is happening. All the cast will be there. It's the best hang in the world, and we hope to see you there. You can register for the festival still online at www.internationaltrombonefestival.com, and it's happening the last week of May. So go register. We'll see you in Texas.
Welcome to the Trombone Retreat, podcast of the Third Coast Trombone Retreat. Today on the podcast, we welcome John Romero, principal trombonist of the Metropolitan Opera Orchestra. My name is Sebastian Vera, and I'm joined as always by Nick Schwartz. So if we're playing Trombone Monopoly, Nick, we've completed the Detroit Symphony section, and I believe we're just a Weston Sprott away from a full Met section.
Collect them all.
I don't know what we get once we do that, but
we get a gold star and a happy face sticker.
Wow. You know, it's funny because I was talking to some friends that teach kids that age, and it's amazing how much you can get a young person to do for just like, look on that chart. You got the most stars in the class.
Oh, I did a lot for stars. I mean, things I'm not proud of.
Okay, this is a family show.
Is this episode a family episode?
So if you haven't subscribed yet to the Trombone Retreat podcast, please do. That's it.
You know where to go. Click them buttons. Mash those likes.
We're actually on Amazon now. That's a new podcast platform. So if you've
Thank
ever heard
you, Jeffrey Bezos.
So if you've ever heard of Amazon.com, maybe, yeah.
Is that where you buy and sell books?
Yes. This is one of the most fun interviews we've had, I think. I mean, we've had a lot of fun interviews, but this one was great. We had just hung out with John at the Trombone Retreat, so I think we were very comfortable very quickly, and it just went in a lot of different directions, and so I'm excited to get right to it.
And there's another thing that's interesting. This is our second John in a row, and we had 3 Johns, technically, because you're a John.
Man, you're just full of insights today.
I am. I'm sage and wise.
So, the big news today that we teased last month, and actually we've probably been teasing this forever, or for a long time. Our Patreon is finally live and ready to go. For those of you who are not familiar with what a Patreon is, it's a way for supporters of anyone to support someone that is creating something. So in our case, it's a way for, if you enjoy the Trombone Retreat, it's a way for us to continue doing this to the best of our ability. And we've been thinking about this a long time, and we didn't want to announce it until we really knew it was something of value to our listeners. Producing this podcast for both of us has been a great joy and privilege in our lives, but it does take countless hours, which has become increasingly difficult now that our schedules are picking up again. But if you enjoy the podcast and it's added anything to your life, first of all, thank you. And if you feel so inclined, please consider supporting us. And if you do, you get a lot of cool stuff.
On the entry level, we have Trombone Retreat Supporter for $5 a month. And, you know, this is basically to show support of the podcast and that, you know, to help us kind of keep the lights on, so to speak. And you get access to video of the Trombone Retreat podcast, which is pretty cool. You get a limited edition Trombone Retreat case or stand sticker, however you want to slap that sticker on things.
They're actually super cool and they're beautiful. And I've been surprised. We just kind of did it for fun. And I've been surprised how many people want these things.
And, you know, if you want to get a little bit more supportive of us, we appreciate that. And you can set sail on the friendship for $15 a month.
So in the second tier, in addition to the sticker and video of all the podcasts, you'll have early access to all Trombone Retreat podcast episodes. You'll be able to listen to it before everyone. as well as 2 new podcasts I'm very excited about. Alternating monthly, I'll have 2 podcasts. One called Winning the Audition, where I'm going to talk to audition winners and break down their processes that led to their success from preparation to audition day, really get into their routine, really break down exactly what they did, their mental process. And another one for you gearheads, a podcast is going to be called Meet Your Maker, where I'm going to hang out with craftsmen of trombones, mouthpieces, accessories, everything, and discover the magic behind what they've discovered, as well as practical, technical knowledge we all should know. Also, in that tier, we'll have trombone tip videos that we'll upload each month, and that is the $15 tier.
In the next tier, for $25 a month, you can retreat yourself. And in addition to all the things we listed before, you get live monthly warm-up sessions with Sebastian and myself. You get an etude or excerpt of the month class with myself, where I break down how I work on certain etudes, post practice videos, post the final product. You get a monthly listening party with myself, where we're going to do a deep dive and a live chat into some of my favorite recordings and talk about performance history, things like that. And that will be recorded and saved and posted in the Patreon. And something I'm very excited about, a live monthly after hours hang with Sebastian and myself, where we'll have a guest on and or guests. Yeah, we could have a whole section. Who knows? And we will let our hair down, so to speak. And that will not be recorded. So
that will definitely not be recorded.
Yeah.
This will be live, and there may be drinks involved, and it's going to be fun. And if you want to really connect, we have 2 more higher tiers, which have even more things. So go to our Patreon. It'll be patreon.com/trombone retreat. Patreon.com/trombone retreat. And you can find all the information. We very much appreciate all of your support. And this episode is also brought to you by Houghton Horns. Check out the Houghton Horns YouTube page for a new exclusive video from John Romero recording the Texas All-State Trombone Etudes. These are kind of famous. They do them every year. Brian Hecht is also doing one.
These videos that they make are both informative in the sense that they're standard etudes, but they also have some pretty Houghton Horns-esque humor.
And Houghton Horns is your store for all trombone accessories, trombones, music, everything you could imagine. That's houghtonhorns.com. That's HOUGHTON horns.com.
Enjoy this podcast with John Romero.
Hopefully this works.
Yeah, it does. Totally.
Yeah. All right.
You look like one of those political YouTubers. Like you're set up. You just live in that room.
Exactly.
Right. I got to get the mic in the frame if I'm going to do that. Hang on. Here we go.
Now we're
All right.
talking.
You're listening to Jack the Ripper 310, and I'm here to tell you why. I don't know. I can't even. I don't listen. I don't listen to those shows, so I figure it's just like that, though. Just my intuition, my big brain. Right.
Well, we look forward to digging into that big brain for the next hour.
Good.
Are you in the new place?
Yeah. I moved to 111th Street, and some name I keep forgetting about. It's basically right above Central Park.
Nice. How's it been?
Good. Still moving in, as you can probably tell. So it's like a 4-bedroom. We got a really nice deal on it, and it's really crazy having a place this big in New York, compared to where I've been. We have a whole extra just spare fucking room, and I feel like we have to get a what was it in Narnia, the wardrobe? Is that what they are?
Yeah, the wardrobe.
Yeah. You got to get a big armoire or something.
I had a wardrobe in my place in San Francisco. It was actually Sam Schlosser's. I took over his rent, and he built the wardrobe in the room. And the problem was you couldn't take it out of the room because it came in pieces. And once it was put together, it was it can't get through the store again. So pretty much you're just going to have to turn it into lumber when they're done with it.
That's part of the New York experience, right? Is living in a really tiny place, or living in a place that's just smaller than you were expecting. And then especially, with your schedule and, once work is starting up again, it's so nice to be in that city and be able to come home to a place that feels good.
Yeah, for sure. My first place in New York was, they've been it's not like I've lived in like a shoebox. I've done some Airbnbs around here, and some of the apartments are just kind of ridiculous. Like, I can even get like kind of dorm style rooms, but like beyond that, you know what I mean? This is one step up from a cardboard box,
Sebastian had an apartment that had this. He lived in the smallest room I've ever seen. It was unbelievable. It like barely could fit a bed.
That's how you get out of grad school. Yeah, we had a full-time drug dealer in the hallway. I remember that.
I do remember.
Full-time.
Someone...
Wait, how do you qualify for full-time? Like, was he
Round the
literally
clock.
dealing drugs 40 hours a week, getting benefits and everything?
I didn't ask him. He was a little scary. People went in shifts, and it was like there was always a guy guarding the door. And so like I never had to use my key to the front door because someone would just like let you in. He was like the initial guy. And then if someone was buying something, they'd go to the very back of the hallway. And I'm just like, whatever, I'm not dealing with this. And yeah, my room like didn't have a closet, so one of those hanging closets. And yeah, it was a charming place. $400 a month though in New York City.
Wow, that's basically worth it. I mean,
that should tell you the level of the place.
I'm telling you right now, it was not worth $400 a month. That was way too expensive for that.
Yeah,
I think I won my opera job when I was living there. But
nice.
How's it feel to be back in New York and at the Met?
It is great. I mean, I know like when people ask, I always hate like this social like code we have where it's like, how are you? Good. How are you? Good. But like for once it's actually good, for the most part. Like there are obviously things to complain about. Work is still work. Like today it was like a 6-hour rehearsal on, something that frankly isn't very fun to rehearse. It kind of is a little bit of a snoozer when you're going back and over again. But
which one was it?
Boris.
Yeah.
Udinov.
I'm doing a couple of those.
Yeah.
Boris.
Yeah, very Russian looking. They even made the kids look Russian. It was very interesting with the makeup design. I didn't realize that you could do that with makeup, just like make people look Russian. That's kind of, I just wonder who goes to like makeup like school or whatever it is, cosmetic design, and like learns how to do Russian face. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know.
Russian face.
Yeah.
You look like you like borscht.
Anyway, but yeah, it's
like we need someone to do Russian face. There's only one person that can do this.
Right.
Bring me Svetlana.
Right. KGB agent, he's probably he had to do lots of different, disguises, right?
Of course, yeah.
Yeah. No,
6 hours of that. Oof.
Yeah. Yeah, those getting back to those kinds of rehearsals, the run through rehearsals that aren't final dresses, but they are basically. It's just it's funny. I thought it would be harder to get back to work and to kind of get into the groove and the mindset, and it's just kind of we're back. Like, I've talked to a lot of people at the Met, and they kind of all say the same thing. It's just, it's like the past year and a half didn't happen, which is weird because when I went through a strike with the Fort Worth Symphony that lasted 4 months, it was the total opposite experience. We were out there marching. It felt like forever, probably because, it was like 100 degrees out there on pavement. Then we get back to work, and it's like it felt like none of us had ever played together, and granted, I didn't have that much experience with playing with them, but there was definitely a kind of a growing period where we kind of regained our sense of ensemble. And so far with the Met, I haven't really noticed anything like that. Like coming back with Mahler too, I think it's just weirdly different.
Yeah, and we definitely want to talk about Fort Worth too. But
yeah,
there was, you don't have to go into too much detail if you don't want to, but there was definitely some uncertainty this year, to say the least, about things working out and coming back to work, or if you'd come back to work. How was that experience?
Yeah, that's a question. So yeah, basically, it felt like a holding pattern. I think that's the most simplest way to put it. It felt like just kind of putting my life on pause, and in a way that just it was just all shitty, but not only not getting paid, but just not even getting the opportunity to work at all. With the strike, it was kind of like, we're going to go back eventually and let's see what kind of deal we have. With this, it was very much more existential. Should I be looking into other career fields, not just jobs in the trombone classical world, right? And, I didn't ever really put too much serious thought into that. But, like, for the first, say, when we first got furloughed back in March of 2020, 3 months ago, right? But, that was, it sucked. I hadn't gotten tenure yet. And then I got tenure like 3 weeks in, and I made that video about celebrating the pandemic way, which was just drinking a shit ton of vodka.
Yeah, if you haven't seen that, people should check that out. It's pretty hilarious.
Yeah, it was a good one.
That would help your Boris Godunov too.
Right. Right. Yeah.
Would that be considered method acting?
That's a good point. I'll be sure to bring that one up with HR,
You need to commit to the role, John.
Right. The Russian trombone player. Yeah. But yeah, so wait, am I supposed to like speak in a Russian accent from now on?
You can do whatever you want, John.
Pandemic was very bad, very bad. Drink lots of vodka. Yeah. No, okay, that's, Now I've talked about Slav face, and now I feel like I'm appropriating Russian culture. This is probably racist. You're going to have to cut this.
Yeah, probably not.
I mean, so there may be some people that listen and are like, oh, the people in the Met aren't getting a full salary or something. Like, they already make the most money, or they already have a really good salary, and especially non-musicians that don't understand things like that. But there's something about, I mean, if you move to New York City and you base your life around a salary, and living in New York City is not cheap, and all of a sudden someone's like, you're just not going to get any money right now. I mean, that's crazy.
Yeah. I mean, it would be one thing if, this were like 20 or 30 years ago, and, the cost of living and wage increases was somewhat coupled, especially housing prices. Like, when Damien got in, he put a down payment on a house after his first year. And housing prices are like 10 times higher than they were when he got in. But the salary is roughly the same in terms of inflation, right?
Right.
And so it would take me 10 years to save up. And that's not counting the fact that, schooling prices have gone up too. And I went to 2 private schools and did not get full rides to both of them. So, full tuition scholarships is the, politically correct term.
Is that really
yes.
the politically?
I've heard people. I've gotten some pushback for saying full rides, as if like somehow that's entitled or something. I don't know. It's dumb in my opinion. It's like everyone calls it full rides. Like, but anyway. But yeah, just to like kind of finish that question from earlier, just like the first few months, I was actually kind of glad that we got a break, because especially around February, moving into March is kind of your recovery period. Okay, last push with the schedule as busy as the Mets, and we just done Votsec, and I was kind of on. I was treating it like a little bit of a sabbatical. Like, yeah, it sucks to not get paid, but I was thinking, okay, if we go back to work in August, I can kind of ride this out with unemployment and teaching income. August of 2020, right? And yeah, after about a month and a half of like actually getting a break for the first time in like 11 or 12 years, which, like I said, that was actually kind of nice to have that. But after that point, it just felt like, okay, when's this thing going to end? It was depressing, frankly. And I mean that in like a literal sense, like seasonal affective disorder, and just like this lack of any structure in my life. And, like no gigs, like people would ask me like, hey, how are you staying motivated to practice? And I'm like, I'm the wrong person to ask, buddy. I'm not even sure that's a realistic thing to expect in a situation like this, where we were all in like, home solitary confinement, or not solitary for all of us, but like at least like home imprisonment, right? To some extent, at least, that sucked. I could make it sound prettier, but like it just sucked. And it's not like every day was like the worst or anything, but just it was not a great year, So I did manage to like stay in shape, which was, nice. I'm glad I didn't like completely crap out on motivation and like come back not being able to hit a high B flat or something, right? That would have just felt bad. But also, and for like anyone who is in that situation, like I totally understand. Especially students who don't even like, I had something I knew I was going to have to come back to and like be in shape for. Some of these students, like the way they're talking about the experience now that we're back in person, it was a lot rougher for them, I think, especially if you just started school or something. I have 2 students in that category.
Some of those big projects you did that popped up on YouTube. I remember seeing a Adagio for strings, and there was another big one, a couple of big ones. Was that during the pandemic?
Yeah, basically, I think every video on my YouTube channel so far happened during the pandemic. My new YouTube channel. I actually have an old one for my student account that I think still has more subscribers than my new one, which, it's been up for like 10 years. So, 347 subscribers or something. Woo!
Bet there's some gems on there.
Yeah, there's some stuff like I'm like proud of, but like I could, do it better now. Yeah, that was like the only thing that I could advise people was like find some kind of project that you can involve yourself in, especially if it means working with other people, doing multi-track stuff, working with computers and recording software, and figuring all that world out is very beneficial as a musician. And what's more, it gave me something to just like be proud of, to work towards, and kind of keep me a little bit focused on something beyond, sitting on the couch all day drinking Russian water.
I haven't heard it called that. That's good.
Yeah.
So you were saying that you didn't get tenure until right after the pandemic started?
Yeah, about like maybe a month into it. I was supposed to get my tenure review meeting like I think the week after they furloughed us or something, or the week of that period where we got furloughed. And so they just pushed the date back, and then they decided to have the meeting on Zoom. I have a friend, though, Paul Radke, who went to Rice University with me, and we were roommates, actually, in my last year there. And he's second trombone in the LA Symphony. And he got in, I think, the same year I think he got in the same year I got into the Met. And he did not get tenure until like a year later. They just pushed it back until like they were sure they were going to come back to work full time, which is, I feel like that's just a shitty thing to do to someone. Like, it wasn't talked about, at least when I was a student, very much, but like just getting tenure in general is like one of the most stressful things, because it's not guaranteed, especially at a high level institution, coming into the Met, I'm really thankful that like I had really nice colleagues and that they were helpful, and especially that the new contract specifically said that they have to be helpful, basically. Like, it literally says something like, any comments you give in these tenure review meetings, which didn't happen in Fort Worth, but any comments you give have to be for the purpose of helping this person achieve tenure and be a better colleague.
They can't just be like, I don't like your hair.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Or they could, but then, they're going to have a visit with HR.
There are 3 members of New York City Ballet Orchestra that were in the same situation that you're talking about, and they still haven't been given tenure. They were due to get tenure at the end of the season, so like end of May of 2020, and they all appealed and said like, well, I would have been done with the process by now. Just like, either way, let me know so I can move forward with my life.
Yeah.
And they were like, no.
And some were like one service short or something crazy.
I think our principal horn was like, he had to play like a week and a half more and he would have been up for tenure. Ugh. And they were like, no, we want to hear that week and a half more. It's like, you know already, one way or another,
right?
And the thing about tenure that's interesting, we've all been through like the 3 of us have been through tenure processes, and you can have everyone telling you every day, dude, you don't have to worry about it. It's fine. You're going to get tenure, and it's still like, okay, I believe what you're saying, I guess, but I want to hear those words.
Yeah. I got that a lot. And I actually, at one point, I had like a near panic attack in a Carmen, because it's the solo with the oboe. It's like, and this conductor wanted it so soft. And in the pit, it felt even more exposed than it did practicing it. And it's not hard. It's like 8 notes, but it's just in my mid range, and it's pianissimo, and it's so delicate. And anyway, it's just like, I ended up like, I was like shaking after playing it. And, it's like, I got to do something about this, because the reason it was so scary was because I actually, so basically when I won the audition, I played like some of the best I had some of the best playing I'd ever done in my life. Like I prepared well. I had my first note perfect round in the semis, which, I'm like, I wouldn't say that like that kind of consistency is one of my fortes. Like, it's just, I'm more known for like my musicality and stuff. Yeah. So that was surprising to me. And because of that, I had this expectation in my head that I had to play like that every single day, every note in the Met, just like the best thing that I've ever pulled out of my face, right? And in reality, and I should have known this, you don't get 3 months of practice on a couple lines, for everything you're doing at the Met. It's so much rep. Like, it just doesn't work that way, and the expectations just are not that way. But until I heard those words, like, I had to like ask Weston to like have lunch with me or something to tell me how I was doing. And I was like, if I'm fucking up, I want to know. Like, don't just like, not tell me, because I would like to like practice whatever it is or do better about XYZ. If, like, do I smell bad? I like, just tell me, And he was like, no, like, you sound fine. If you were fucking up, I would have told you already. And, it's like you'll always hear the negative comments if you really are fucking up. You'll never hear the positive ones unless you ask for them, I find. So, that kind of sucks in a lot of ways, because, like, I wouldn't have been that terrified had someone just told me kind of in explicit terms, like, these are the real expectations, and you'll probably get tenure if you do XYZ. It was just kind of up in the air.
Yeah, you never know what the level they're expecting is, and every little concert, every little moment that doesn't quite go exactly how you want, or like the conductor gave you a look you weren't really sure about, like, it can so easily amplify, right? And that's why I asked you about that, because we've all been in situations like that, and towards the end of your tenure process, having VoteSec on there, like, what a test! Like, you didn't get to just cruise and play a bunch of bohems or something. And I got to hear one of those concerts, and you played fantastically, of course, and Nick was playing too, and it was brilliant playing. But man, I had no idea that was like towards the end of your tenure process. I can only imagine. I mean, that's a challenge enough just to get through that opera.
What's really funny is I think I would have been more nervous if it had all been like Bohems and Aidas. Well, maybe not Aida, because Aida had some stuff in it. But like, if it were like Carmelite, Dialogue of the Carmelite, and Lights, and then like some other like kind of fluffy pieces that don't really have much trombone playing, and I'm being judged on that, like, that would have worried me more, because my background is basically practicing all the high, fast, loud stuff. That's all I wanted to do as a kid, was basically like be able to play Arthur Pryor faster than anyone and higher than anyone, and that was my motivation to practice, like, as a young student. And so for VoteSec, it's like, that's right up my alley. Like, if it's got some weird technical flexibility shit that's high or loud or both, ideally, it's like, I can do that. It's the like I said, that soft, delicate stuff that really almost doesn't matter, but it's like low reward, high risk playing. I can't do that. It has to be high risk and high reward, which, I don't know, maybe that's weird, but like, it's just, that's where my I think my skills lie, is more that, rather than like Damien is really good at, that kind of more almost, I feel like it's more ambiguous. Like, there's, when you got like bam, 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 it's like, there's not too many ways that can go, I don't know.
Right. I agree what you're saying. Oh, I'm going to tell you something. You probably don't know this, actually. After, I think it was the dress rehearsal of VoteSec, Paul Pollard, for those listening, turned to me and said, in case it wasn't clear for anyone before, John Romero just got tenure. Like with that, because it was so good. Like, it was just like you nailed it to the wall. And I was like, I mean, everyone around that has played with you at the Met, it was so clear in everyone's head. Obviously, I have no say in that, but if it were up to me, but it was, I mean, anyone that talked about your playing and stuff like that, it was all just like, yeah, he's awesome. Like, great fit. So, I mean, and again, going back to, it's like, someone could have said that to your face. Like, right. You're getting tenure. It is not going to be a problem. I promise. And it's like, dude, you don't make the decision. Like, I need it from the person who makes the decision.
Right. Yeah. It's like, at the end of the day, it is Yannick's decision. Like, the Met has language where he can't just veto and nothing else happens. Like, there's like always going to be like either a revote or like another year offered for the tenure process or things like that. But after that, it's his vote. He gets to veto, essentially. And that's the case of most places. The director gets the last say. So it's like, you guys could love me, and this guy could just hate me because of my hair or something. You know what I mean? Like, it's like, there's no way to really alleviate every single fear about the process unless it is like, unless it's a true majoritarian vote, Right. And you do know, like, people have literally told you, like, yes, we're going to vote for you. And then you can still be paranoid and be like, what if they're just saying that to my face? But, secretly they're like holding their fingers behind their back,
Right. Well, that happened to a friend of mine, a horn player. Like,
really?
And I don't want to say where, but he was up for tenure, and the whole time in the meetings and everything was told that you're doing great, blah blah blah. And then it's a secret vote, and he was voted not to get tenure. And
Yikes.
and he was like, "What did I do wrong?" And then they told them afterwards. They're like, "Well, it was this and it was this and this." And
Tell
it's like,
people that shit while they're trying to get tenure.
I know.
God,
And
it's like musicians, once you're on a tenure committee, and I'm not trying to talk shit about anyone in particular, but like as a culture, like, why have we constructed the tenure process to be this way? It's like we forgot that people know how to practice, like, you know?
Right.
And yeah, I do understand, like, sometimes you get someone, you know, this is, I think, the big danger with the blind audition is sometimes you get someone who may be a great player, but they're an absolute asshole, or they, like, have other issues. They just don't, you know, they're not good workers, you know, even if they're good musicians, or colleagues, not good colleagues, you know? I get that, you know, that's what the tenure process is there for, to, you know, make sure that people are really a good fit. But, like, if it's something artistic, you know what I mean? Like, just tell them. And, you know, at least the Met has something to that effect. But I still think culturally, like, we have a long ways to go where, because I know it's awkward. It's awkward to tell someone who you're going to be working with and who may have a temper or who might not take criticism well that they're, you know, doing something they need to fix. But also, like, that's part of the culture change that needs to happen, too. It's like, you know, you want a job, big whoop, you know, don't get an ego about it, right? It's like, we're all human.
Right. I agree 100%.
I also like that it's the first time I've ever heard the word majoritarian before. I learned something every day. I mean, and it speaks to a broader point of, you know, for example, Paul was saying that to the section, and for all you know, you could have had no clue. And I think sometimes people also assume on the other side that they're like, oh, John knows how good he sounds, you know, or something. And it's like, that's why I have the philosophy of anytime you think something positive about someone, no matter what, it's never a bad thing to share that with that person.
Yeah.
Well, I remember it was early on in my career, and I went up to, I think it was an oboe player. I went up to an oboe player, and I just said, wow, that solo was really beautiful. And the next day they came up to me and they were like, you have no idea how much that meant to me. Like, I haven't really been paid a serious compliment in years. And it's like, this person, they were so good. I think people just thought, yeah, oh, they know how good they are. They don't need to be told that. And it's just like, I mean, when is it a bad thing to hear you sound good? I like the way you play, you know?
Yeah. I mean, the worst case scenario, you look like a kiss ass, and like, what's that going to do? Like, especially if you aren't one, you know? And even if you are one, like, I mean, can you blame people for like trying to grift a bit, get some opportunities? I've gotten that a little bit from students looking to like, that actually happened a lot with Fort Worth Symphony, weirdly. People basically trying to like be buddy after concerts, and then they would basically be like, yeah, you sounded so good. Yeah, so you guys have a sublist audition or anything? You know, here's my resume. And I'm like, okay, look, it's fine. You're looking for work. I get it. I'm not going to count that against
pull it out of their sleeve.
Right, yeah.
Here you go.
Oh, I'm not prepared at all.
Right. I got my trombone in the car if you want.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I mean, like, it's like, yeah, what's the worst case scenario, like, for you paying someone a compliment, you know?
Right.
I don't know. I think that'd be a good cultural shift in general. I actually hear, I've heard kind of mixed things about this, but apparently Europeans think Americans are already, like, too nice.
Yeah.
You know, when they come here. Like, why are you smiling at me? This is weird. Stop it.
I think they just think it's kind of fake. Like,
yeah,
it's like, you don't know me. Why are you asking me how I'm doing, kind of thing? When for us, it's just like a typical greeting.
Right.
Yeah.
But all of our European listeners can let us know.
Smile or don't smile at people.
So, Nick and John, I'd like to hop in a time machine, take it back.
Can it be a hot tub time machine?
Sure. We're gonna go tubbing. Take it back to Longview, Texas. In the are we talking about the late 80s, early 90s?
Yeah. That would be. I was born in 91, so you know, 90s, 2000s were my heyday.
So what's it like Longview, Texas? That's East Texas,
yes.
Right? I'm from Texas, and still there's so many cities in Texas. It's easy to like.
Yeah, and people expect you to know if you're from Texas. Like, oh yeah, I'm from Decatur, and I'm like, cool. Is that like which part of the? You know, you try to like do. You know, Michigan. How do you say Michiganders?
Michiganders.
Mm-hmm. You know, you got the hand. We're just like, we're kind of like, if this is like the top part, we're like, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that is an interesting question because, you know, in a lot of ways, you know, like where you grew up is what you just consider normal. And so it's a little hard for me to answer that question after now living in different places and like going back there is a very different experience because it's such like it's not like a small, it's like population 80,000, so it's not like a small town. Like, you know, Kyle Sherman, principal trumpet in Fort Worth Symphony, he grew up in a town population like 3,000, but his actual town was really population like 50 or something, you know, so like that's small. And there's lots of those in Texas, you know, but like 80,000 is like big enough to where you feel like you're living somewhere, you know, and then you actually like, I go live in Houston. I'm like, holy shit, there's a lot of people in the world and a lot of cars and a lot of bad drivers in Houston, particularly.
Yeah.
But, you know, so like growing up there, I think the best, you know, descriptor is that it was just kind of quiet is the wrong word, but, you know, like that kind of like country town, like just, you just kind of mind your business. You mostly like exist in your own like kind of space. Like we grew up on like on a hill with like 1.5 acres and, you know, woods all around. And so we just kind of like entertained ourselves just playing outside. And, you know, when the video games got old, because, you know, like you only have like so many things. You can't like download new games. You had to like go to the bookstore or, you know, go rent a movie at Blockbuster. If we're gonna, you know, jump in the time machine. We got to name drop all the old things, you know. had to pull up my cassette player and, you know, have the CD player attachment. Anyway, so no, but like, especially like before I could drive, it was just kind of just quiet. And so like my world essentially was just like going to school, coming home, doing my homework, and like either being outside or being inside and video games and practicing. And, you know, there's not really much more to it. Like the town itself was almost just like non-existent in a lot of ways. It just, there was nothing really to go to do, minus the occasional like bowling alley trip or something, you know.
I kind of miss that quiet sometimes, or at least I appreciated the quiet a lot more once I left and just like falling asleep to the cicadas, and which are very polarizing. I'm learning some people really hate those, cicadas. But I love that sound.
Yeah.
As you can hear at the beginning of a lot of these podcast episodes.
I wonder if the same people who like cicadas are the same people who like white noise when they sleep. Because, like, that's also polarizing. Like, my wife can't stand it. But I like to have a big box fan, not even blowing on me, just like, you know, just, you know, it's like waves, but, you know, continuous.
I sleep to ocean waves every night. Like, I'm totally addicted.
If I really have a hard time sleeping, like before the Met audition, I woke up at like 3 a.m. and had to force myself to go back to sleep. So I'm like, I'm not playing an audition on like 3 hours of sleep, you know? And so I put on like rain, thunder noises and waves crashing. I think the rain was the one that got me. You know, pro tip.
I fall asleep to Fran Drescher laughing on loop.
Have you heard?
That's a 90s reference.
Yeah. Oh my God. Speaking of that kind of content, have you guys ever heard the every Michael Jackson grunt excerpted out into one video?
Oh, that's
it is
awesome.
The most amazing thing. It's like 5 minutes of just, you know, you know, and like
lots good.
Oh, Jamona, you know.
Jamona.
I feel like I have seen that.
That sounds awesome. I'm gonna check that out.
Right. Yeah, pull it out like a restaurant, you know.
Sir, you're gonna have to leave.
Yeah. No Michael Jackson allowed.
Okay, when did trombone come into the mix, and how did trombone come into the mix?
Yeah, so basically, I you know, going back a little bit for trombone, I started at piano at 5, and then I quit at 6. And coincidentally, I started and quit soccer at the same time frame. So I think, you know, that was just a bad time for me to start anything. So, like, you know, if I'd have started at like 10, like I started at trombone, maybe I'd be a pro soccer player. Who knows? But, you know, not really. I sucked at soccer.
You have good soccer hair, I gotta say.
I was thinking the same thing.
Yeah.
He looks like that. Who's that famous guy on Columbia that had like the big hair?
Oh,
you know what I'm talking about?
Maradona?
Was that Maradona?
No, it's not Maradona.
Someone will know who's listening to this.
Well,
I'm not
there's a Brazilian player too. That,
leave it in the comments.
Someone's already yelling at the
right.
podcast. So,
yeah. So I started at 10 in 5th grade, and the reason I started, basically, like, I went to a school where it was kind of like a prep school, but they didn't call it that. It was like, you know, they had like gifted and talented programs. So they, compared to the rest of the district, we started band a year early. But like it was a choice between band, orchestra, and choir. And for me, it was no choice at all because I had to play trumpet. So, and the reason for that is because my sisters played trumpet. I have 2 older sisters and 3 younger siblings. I'm a third of 6, actually.
Oh, wow.
And we all play brass instruments.
no way.
Really?
Wow.
Yeah.
What a loud house.
I know, right?
Parents.
Oh, you have no
my
idea.
God.
Actually, quick aside. Oh,
Carlos Valderrama.
That's it. Valderrama. Thank you.
Valderrama. I like the rolled R. But yeah, so like a quick aside, speaking of how loud my house was, so my mom would come home every day, and to drown out the noise of the rest of the house, she would turn on every single TV in every single room so that like each room had its own noise like scape, that it was isolated from the others. And then I had two friends come, we were driving from Waco to I think Jacksonville, Mississippi for an audition. And we spent Jackson, Mississippi, that's it. And we stayed at my house, at my parents' house, and they didn't say anything. We were practicing in the living room. They slept, on like air mattresses, and then we left the next day. And they were just like, John, how the hell do you concentrate on all that noise? Like, Jesus, no wonder you're like, you have such good concentration under pressure. Well, and to me, it was like nothing.
White noise.
Right. Yeah, it's just white noise. It's just you tune it out. But yeah, so I started in 5th grade, and my last name starts with an R, and I think they were going in alphabetical order. So by the time they got to me, they had basically, I think they were full up with trumpets. But what they told me was, your lips are too big. You can either play trombone or tuba. So I go home, and my mom says, there's no way you're playing tuba, thinking that it must have been the louder of the two because it's bigger. And, she chose the short end of the stick. But that's why I'm a trombone player and not a tuba or trumpet player.
Your poor, poor mother. I can't imagine working all day. What'd she do for work?
She is a 1st grade teacher.
Oh my gosh. Something that takes so much energy, and then coming home, 6 kids playing their instruments.
Yep.
She deserves a medal.
Well, to be fair, the other of my siblings didn't really practice too much at home. They weren't nearly as serious about it as I was. Although they did, we all were pretty talented musically. I think, there's probably some genetic component there because like everyone was first chair, like in the band without trying. And, it wasn't like a huge pool of people like in Dallas maybe, but like, there were some good players there. People went to All-State every year. So like,
But you were pretty serious from like a young age.
Yeah. I was actually, so the story of like kind of why I ended up really studying trombone seriously was that basically, I guess I should start with where my old band director got fired. So this kid was like mouthing off or something in the middle of rehearsal, and this is in middle school, 6th grade. And so the band director says, his name is, actually, I shouldn't give his name, sorry. But, he's he's probably out there somewhere. I don't know if he listens to the podcast. But anyway, so he says, go to the office. And then so the kid, like, gets up puffy, like, and throws his euphonium on the ground,
That's a good thing to do to euphonium.
Exactly.
Really.
Yeah. I don't know what the band director's problem was, because then he goes like this. He's like gesturing to come up here wordlessly, like, stone-faced, just like, and we're thinking, oh, shit, So he takes him by the small of his back, and we think he's going to lead him to the office. He leads him to the back of the band hall, shoves him in the tuba closet, closes the door, and locks it, and leaves him there for the entire day. So, yeah, that's a little bit of a violation, I don't think he meant to leave him there all day, but, so we got a new band director, and that band director's name, I can say, it is Stephen Moss, and he is, like, one of the greatest teachers ever. He's just one of those guys who just, like, he can take anyone and, like, just motivate them to be their best self. Like he's gone to a couple of different bands, like 3A schools, small schools, and they go from like last division to like first in a year. He also happens to play trombone, so he gave me lessons for free. Most of the time, I think they were for free. I think my mom would sometimes like slip him a check or something. But like really, I think if that hadn't happened, I wouldn't be here right now talking to you guys. And then specifically with the motivation part, like what he did was he just kind of showed me what the trombone could do, and then told me to go do that. So like he showed me a recording of Joe Alessi playing Bluebells of Scotland. And every time I get to this part, people like my students will interrupt me and they'll say, and I say basically, and Joe Alessi played Bluebells of Scotland. I was like, wow. And then they'll interrupt me and say, I suck, as if that's what I'm going to say. And I'm like, no, I was like, wow, this guy's great. I'm going to beat him. Like immediately. It's a little bit maybe of a tall order, but like I was fully aware in my 6th grade brain, like, not right now. Like I got to practice like all the time for the next like decade or so or whatever to get good enough to, and in my head, I was thinking like somehow we would have a solo, like a chair test between me and like Joe Alessi,
B flat scale 2 octaves.
Right.
Go
as fast as possible. Yeah. So that was kind of my start to it. And after that, I just kind of played my Arbans a lot. I did a lot of work on Bluebells of Scotland, actually, and I sounded horrible. But it was more like just the idea that, like, I could eventually do it, that if I just put in the work, I would get there. He also, to teach me triple tonguing, he basically said, all right, ta-ta-ka, right? I did that. And then he gave me, like, those big boxy metronomes that are in band halls, Dr. Beats.
Dr. Beats.
And, right, yeah. So he told
Those
me,
things, I heard those things are, like, insanely expensive, by the way.
Oh,
I
really?
was talking to a band director about it. They're like 1,000 or something insane. Anyways,
not for you're talking about like the big ones that live in the bedroom. Those are
yeah. But he told me to put it on, like, I think it was I think 180 or something, and he said if you can't triple tongue at this speed by tomorrow, you're kicked out of band. And I was super gullible, so I thought he was serious, and so I practiced like 6 hours that night trying to learn triple tonguing. And
your tongue must have been so tired, dude.
Oh yeah, no, it was awful, And
well, I mean, your previous band director shoved someone in a locker for not doing something they said. So I mean,
yeah, so I believed
you knew.
Yeah, you're like, I don't want to go to the locker.
Yeah, I mean, like I was like, what, like 11, so like I didn't have like a sarcastic bone in my body yet. So I went home and I could triple tongue at 180. It's like I unlocked my limiter, from that kind of practice. And so I guess it was kind of like with that kind of training and upbringing of just this kind of like, actually I would say like I was influenced by like Dragon Ball Z quite a bit.
Yeah.
That whole mindset of doing, like, practicing or training as hard as you can and being willing to go to lengths other people are not. And, frankly, not giving a damn if it makes you look crazy to other people. Because I would practice during lunch. I would like skip lunch to practice. And, that was kind of my life. He actually ended up buying a practice mute for the band hall, like a Yamaha silent brass mute, because like people kept complaining because people would eat in the band hall and I would just be playing Arbans over and over. Yeah.
I love that one.
Rest.
Don't even make fun of that one. So, and that sounds really cool. It sounds like you had such a great mindset from a young age of not having any self-limiting thoughts. And I would have to imagine, your parents must have instilled that too, or maybe all Dragon Ball Z, but like that's just a fantastic mindset of like,
I was raised by Dragon Ball Z, molded by it
from the fire.
Dragon Ball Z man.
Yeah. No, my parents had some influence for sure.
Cool. But yeah. So moving on, because there's so much we want to talk to you about.
Sure.
But staying in Texas for school for Baylor and Rice, were there any thoughts to getting out of the state, or it was just kind of how it worked out?
Yeah, I tried very hard to get out of the state, but that was, in my undergrad. God, I could tell another long-winded story, but suffice it to say that I basically accidentaled my way into being a music major at Baylor. It's a great story. I don't know if we have time to tell it. Sharp or flat?
You accidentaled.
Oh yeah.
That's terrible. I'm sorry.
No, it's okay.
Thanks, Brian Santero.
Right. I'm not quick-witted enough to do that, but no, basically, like I really wasn't told. I decided to be a music major after making All-State, and that was like a week before the deadline to apply, and I'd missed like in-person auditions pretty much everywhere. So I sent in like a shitty CD that was recorded with a shitty mic, and I apparently sent it to the wrong place. So I show up, and I'm like, why can't I sign up for music classes? And they're like, who are you? And so I'm going back and forth between like different offices and Brent Phillips and all that, and I ended up managing to secure an audition the day before classes started. And I missed syllabus day, and then I show up to the concert in like a yellow pinstripe shirt and khakis because I didn't know that we all wore tuxes, apparently, because I grew up in a small town. That's just, we did Sunday best. And then Christian Parup runs to his apartment like 15 minutes before the show, gets his spare tux, and I put it on like 5 minutes for the show, and it's missing buttons from like, second button down almost to the bottom. So the whole time I'm just like, like T-Rexing, trying not to like expose the whole audience.
Window to the meat display.
Right, yeah. The audience was strangely captivated that night. I don't know what it was. Yeah, but like, so like Baylor was just kind of, it happened, and I'm glad I went there. It was good education, good experience. But, I obviously like kind of was more in the loop for my graduate studies. So I basically only auditioned at Rice for like, as far as Texas schools go. Then I auditioned at Juilliard, didn't get in, NEC got in, and that's another funny story. But yeah, so I auditioned like 3 or 4 state schools out of the state, and just I ended up getting a a full tuition scholarship at Rice, and I didn't get that at the other places. So, I already had a lot of debt from Baylor, and so it was really more of a financial choice than anything. Also, not getting into Juilliard, that was, I don't know. Like, I'm fine. I made it. I kind of almost like out of spite, I started practicing more like seriously about orchestral auditions. It's like, oh, you don't want to take me? Fine then. I don't need you. So I don't know. I think it actually was a good thing that I didn't go to Juilliard, though, because I would have studied with Joe Alessi. And, not saying anything about his teaching or anything. Like, it's obviously great. I've studied with him, like, at the Alessi seminar is always good. But I think just the environment and how high intensity it is and living in New York and stuff, I needed, like, a much more, like, relaxed kind of graduate experience after just, like, practicing my ass off at Baylor. I burned out, like, super hard for, like, the next 4 years, really. Like, it really wasn't until I got to the Met that I kind of was over that cycle. So, rest is important. Yeah, highly recommend it.
How'd you burn out?
Basically taking every single audition I could and every competition. Competitions are actually okay. That's a lot less stressful, I think. A lot more rewarding. You get to actually finish your solo, even if you don't play well,
Less stressful, maybe for you. Jeez.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. I mean, would you say that like a solo competition is more stressful than an audition?
I never did solo competitions because they were too stressful.
Really?
Yeah, I never took a single one.
Wow. That's it's very different from my experience. I didn't want to play those band parts, It's like, what's the point? You don't even get to hear anything.
Well, speaking of competitions, it seems like something that you really enjoyed, and you did well in, the Larry Wee, the Marsteller, Eastern Trombone Workshop, Big 12 Trombone Conference, winning concerto competitions. You've had a lot of success in these solo competitions, which, some people are intimidated by this, but I mean, how did it contribute to your overall playing by really, throwing yourself into this kind of thing? Because you clearly could have just been like, oh, I'm just going to take orchestral auditions and do this, but throughout your whole career in coming up through college, you were always challenging yourself by doing these competitions.
For me, solo competitions were a natural extension of kind of how I grew up in Texas and the Texas band system. It's nothing but competitions. It's very competitive. A lot of times, a lot of schools will have chair tests every week. But that is on band music usually, or etudes. So I was used to, doing like Voxman etudes for like Allstate. And so solo competitions to me were a nice extension of that. And they were, less stressful. Like in Texas, it's a cattle call system. Anyway, point is like,
yeah,
it just made sense to me to do that. I liked playing solos and, I like winning. And so I practiced really hard so I would win. And I didn't win all of them. I think it's a little over a 50-50 ratio. It's like a 60-40 or something for the ones I actually put a recording in, and but still that's a lot, and I acknowledge that. And what it did for my playing, though, I think the best way to say it is kind of to go through my process for the first real like international competition I did, the Weehee competition. So Arthur Pryor, right? I feel like, my whole life I've been training for this. That was kind of what that was like for me. From Dragon Ball to Kid Locked in the Closet to finally Bluebells, like
nice. Nice.
Just like, that's my train. If you put on some Rocky music and that's my 80s training montage, is,
push it to the limit. Oh, that's Bloodsport. Right. Sorry.
Yeah. So like it was, I was like, all right. So the other players who made the finals. Actually, I made first alternate in the recorded session, and then someone dropped out because it was in Paris. I'm assuming they just didn't have the money to go or whatever. So I got pushed up to finalist. And so I'm like, oh, okay. So I look up the other people. They're older than me. And I'm, at this point, like I was a sophomore. I had finished my sophomore year of college, undergrad. And I still felt like I was actually behind. When I got there, because I had almost exclusively practiced like high, fast, loud stuff, I didn't really have a solid fundamental, it didn't have solid fundamentals. And so, I felt like I was behind, and these players were like, I think in their first year, their masters, both of them. And I'm like, I'm the underdog here, so I have to practice twice as hard as them. And I have to be, again, kind of be willing to take any step that they're not willing to. And I'd also read I'm Here to Win by Chris McCormick at the time, which is a great book for competition strategy. He definitely comes across as a little bit of an asshole in it, but like, it's not like he's like putting people down. He's basically just saying, I'm better than you in this way, and I'm going to beat you at this part of the race. That's what he would do, apparently. And like, he played like kind of psychological warfare. He's like the only guy to ever win the Kona Ironman triathlon twice, and the second time he did it, he was in his 40s. So it's considered one of the most difficult ones in the world. So the guy's like got competition mentality down. So just like being willing to assess the competition and being honest about their strengths and weaknesses as well as yours, and being able to devise a strategy to make sure that your strengths are played better than their strengths are for them, right? And that your weaknesses don't get in the way, which sounds basic, but, it was stuff that I hadn't really thought about so seriously, and I really started to implement that in my practice. And one of the things I did, I had another teacher in high school, David Applegate, who he had a lot of like really influential kind of phrases and sayings he would tell me, stuff like, if you had 10 clones of you, how would you differentiate yourself? It's like the only way is musicality. So don't neglect that, right? In fact, that's the only thing that'll help you when you get to the highest levels of playing, because everyone basically has the same skill set at that point, And so there's that. There's like, have you ever gone into a room and just played one note for like 4 hours until you couldn't miss it? And he was talking about the high B flat and bolero, and he just pulls out his trombone and he's like, burp, burp, and just like, I don't know, if he did that 100 times, he would have missed it. But like the impression that left on me, right? So I'm practicing like sometimes some of these licks, like like I listen to Arthur Pryor, and he plays it like he's ripping through it like faster than anyone, And he also doesn't really care if he chips notes. It's more about the gesture, So I'm kind of learning to like really think seriously about how to absorb the style of something. Like I would listen to recordings of him and Robert Isley, I forget his name, the Marine Band soloist, and like probably I had like a dozen recordings of Love's Enchantment for this, and I probably put in like 100 hours just listening to the recordings, and because what I told myself is I may not be the best like player, but I'm gonna be the most stylistically and musically accurate one. And I even got comments basically saying that, like I think it was Bill Reichenbach who said very stylistically accurate or something on the comments. And so yeah, I just like I got really like specific about my musicality. Like it's not it's like very specific about exactly how much crescendo and where do I peak and blah blah blah. So like just having this really solid idea in my head of how I wanted it to go, and that really affected how I practiced it, because now since I had such clear goals, it was a lot easier to determine whether or not I was on the right track to meet those goals. And so I think it just made my practice a lot more efficient. It made it a lot more easy to motivate myself to practice, because I could look at different parts of the piece and be like, I've got that down. Oh, this is sounding really good now. And actually, speaking of my parents' influence, I hope my mom isn't listening to this part. Maybe she's dozed off by now, but she never really gave me like real compliments on my trombone playing until about a week before the competition. And she, what she said? Because I would ask her, like, she went to school for choral education, so she's a musician, she knows like standards and stuff. But like she would tell me before when I'd ask her to listen to it, she's like, sounds like a trombone. And so a week before, she finally said, wow, that's starting to sound like a real solo, is what she said. And I'm like, gee, thanks, Mom. It's like very clear like what her opinion was about my playing before that point. Which is fine. I mean, I think it's useful to not give people fake compliments if you don't really think that of them sometimes, when it comes to stuff like this where I'm being judged. But, so like basically from that point on, after I realized how effective putting the musicality and stylistic kind of stuff first, and then practicing the technique for the purpose of what you have in your head now musically, how effective that was at motivating me, and how fun it was to actually like really sound good on a solo, like something that I was genuinely proud of, that I could really say, I didn't play this like necessarily as technically good as say Joe Leslie would, but I'm really proud. I think the piece should go like this. And I, like to really have that stuck with me in a really big way. And I think that's a large part of why I was so successful at other competitions. And once I did that, by the way, I didn't have to do that like every single piece, not as seriously. Because turns out those are skills, the ability to detect style and to mimic it. You get good at it, and you don't have to do it nearly as rigorously after that. And I try to impress that on my students, and it's really hard because somehow it's one of those things where I think until you do it and you see the results for yourself, it just basically sounds like, yeah, go listen more, like, yeah. So,
yeah. Oh man, so much to unpack there.
Yeah, that's a lot.
Yeah,
sorry.
But
no, it's good.
No, this is great. You talk about competition in this book, which sounds fascinating. And I think about this a lot. And then you talked about, finding your interpretation and the subjectivity of you as an individual and what you're bringing. Do you see it? I mean, where's the line for you of how it's a competition, but it's still art? So it's not like a straight up sport where like, oh, this person finished before this person, or this person scored more points than the other person. I mean, there's some elements where it's not just purely about I need to be better than that guy, right? I mean, isn't there an element of I'm trying to be the best version of myself while taking in those elements? I guess those elements can be great for motivation, I imagine, too.
Yeah, that's something I was aware of, pretty early on, maybe more so in college on, just that, yeah, you can't control the judge's opinions. And so there's always an element of, if you fail, that's not necessarily a failure for you. It just means like personally, like it doesn't necessarily mean you played badly. It could just be that they liked someone else more. And so, I think to answer your question maybe more directly, I think I basically, like you said, I just tried to be the best version of myself I could be. And I was always aware of where I thought kind of the standards were, where other people my age or around my age were playing, because I figured that's most of who I'm going to be competing against for like jobs, essentially. And I don't know, I guess I just tried not to let it get to me, because it is really hard when you go to an audition and you don't even get past the prelims or something. Yeah, I don't know. I guess I just always took it like personally, like I need to do better. I don't really think I ever had to think about that aspect of it too much, if I'm understanding your question correctly.
Yeah. I mean, well, it's just I think there's definite benefit from looking at it through the lens of competition, but I think there's like you can go too far, right? Like
totally.
There's some downsides.
I think if you take it personally when you lose without factoring in that essentially randomness of, competition, both of your own personal performance, like, something you ate could affect your playing, right? And also the judges. Like, if you don't factor that in and you take it personally, I mean, I've definitely seen people do that, like my own colleagues in school, students and whatnot, and it's really hard not to. So I think for me, it was easier than most to not have to deal with that aspect of failure, because in my head, like, or rather, I think because I was successful at competitions pretty early on in my, college experience, frankly, I thought I was good. Like, I thought I was a good player. And so if I lost, it didn't mean that, like, I knew obviously I had a lot of room to grow, because I wasn't winning auditions. I knew I wasn't professional yet, but I knew I was, like, good for my age, I guess is how I would put it. And so, when I didn't win, I just thought, okay, I just need to work harder,
Great.
And I don't know, maybe that's hard to do if you don't have the experience of, or you don't really believe that you're essentially a good player, like for your development stage, And so, to those people, I guess I don't really know what to say except, practice more, right? Try to find something where you have some sense of success, because I think that's necessary. I think you have to feel like you're on the right track. And part of that is it not having only failure in your head, and some of that is psychological. Like, obviously you can take anything you want harshly.
I mean, you took failure the best way possible. You're just like, oh, I'm not letting this determine how I feel about myself, but it's just reminding me, oh, there's some things I could do better and I'm going to work on those.
Right.
It's like the best, most productive mindset. And that makes me think about, I actually copied, for anyone that follows John on Facebook or is on the trombone pedagogy group, he's got some amazing things he's written. He's not shy about his opinions, and that's why we love him.
No, I am not.
But one of my favorite things, and I haven't talked to you about this yet, one of my favorite things that I saw you write once was in response to someone, and I won't say his name, but, there was a recent audition and someone was like, and I've heard this from a lot of students in a lot of different contexts and professionals where like, hey, I thought I played perfectly. Like, I didn't miss anything. Why didn't I advance? Basically was the gist. And I'll just quickly read what you wrote. And you said, I don't think flawless makes sense in any kind of musical context, even in auditions where relatively small blemishes in your tuning or timing can get you kicked out. The way I think of it is competency versus musicality. Being able to play in time and tune and with a good sound on each note in the right style, that's just competency. And I think that as basically getting to 0 on a scale from -10 to +10. Musicality is where you get your positive points. And there's no such thing as flawless musicality, just different and more or less effective versions of it. And then you go on, but that's the subjectivity, right? That,
right.
Everyone's perception is going to be different,
Wow.
right?
My microphone placement on the floor.
Yeah.
No cap, for real, for real.
Yeah.
Sebastian's looking at me like, mic drop.
Yeah. Right. Hang on. Let me unscrew this.
Yeah.
Actually, I got a shitty mic over here. I could probably,
Mic drop.
just like I need a prop, for lessons.
Yeah.
If I ever like say something really profound and the student's just like, that makes so much sense. Just like grab it out of my pack and just, anyway.
And at the end, you say the ones who won the auditions or at least got to the finals all had something to say with their playing.
Mm-hmm.
We all wanting them to just keep playing for us because they were pleasant to listen to. It's not rocket science. It's just really, really, really hard to do that on so many different pieces in such a stressful environment.
Yeah.
Boom.
It is hard. I mean, that's why, winning is hard. I mean, I don't know. I feel like somehow like there's like a lot of weird psychological stuff that goes on. And I think the classical musician's head in this environment, because it's supposedly a meritocracy, but if it were a real meritocracy, everyone who reaches a certain playing level would have a job. And that's just not the case. It's a competition, and competitions, I guess, are meritocracies in a way, but like,
depends on what type of competition.
Yeah.
If it's like a race, of course it is. But like when it comes down to music and art, it's completely subjective.
Right. Maybe I feel like actors might have this problem on a larger scale because you show up to an audition and everyone looks the exact same as you. Like that's got to be even more demoralizing. You know what I mean? Like,
right.
Like I wasn't even the best.
Everyone else
version
has
of me.
a trombone.
Yeah. So, but like, I don't know. It's just like, it's a weird mental space to live in as a student in particular. Like, I remember even with winning like auditions and competitions, I remember saying to like some people, like some of my colleagues, like, I don't know if I'll ever get a job. I mean, and then they would look at me like I'm crazy because like, well, you have all this success and, you're such a great player. You sound like how you sound like. And I'm like, yeah, but like I keep cracking notes. I'm not perfectly in tune. Like, you're always going to be able to find flaws in your playing. Like even now, like unless you are literally a robot, like it's so easy to take the flaws in your playing and amplify them into this kind of extra meaning, which is that you're a bad person, essentially. Like you haven't practiced enough, therefore you are a bad person morally, or like. And I think if we lived in a Star Trek universe and it's just Riker playing the trombone in the hallways of the Enterprise, who gives a shit how good you play, right? Like what matters is how entertaining you are or how meaningful you are. And so like I think just the fact of our like the way jobs are structured in the classical music world and how few of them there are, it sucks because like it makes people play music for all the wrong reasons. And I think of course you're gonna run into mental roadblocks that you have to work against because you're not doing it because you like it. You're doing it because you have to not starve, essentially. That's, I don't know. That's just something that I wish that we could, if we had like more government funding or something, and we had like 6 orchestras per city, like this would be a lot less of an issue. I don't know. It's weird to me how hard it is to convince students to adopt that kind of mindset and to prioritize musicality. Because like I talk about it every single lesson, and it's just seems like it's just really difficult to convince them of that.
Well, that's the thing. I think how you described how your process with solo playing is the way to do it, because I experienced this and I feel like a lot of people do. Like you start out musical. I mean, you start out enjoying all the natural elements for the most part. And then when you're trying to get better, when people say, oh, no, don't do like this, do like this. Oh, this needs to be like this, not like this. You go into that other side of your brain, right? You're going to that other side where you're just like trying to get better through that kind of lens and in that side of your brain where I just need to be thinking about all these things that I need to be doing right. And then it's really easy to get so entrenched in there, you lose all that expressiveness.
Yeah.
And so to come out of it, instead of trying to be like, I should do this, oh, I should crescendo here and do this, to connect back, you have to do what you were saying and connect with what you want it to sound like, what the style is, what you're trying to do, and have that really clear idea of what you want to say, right?
Yeah.
And then bring it back with your technique.
Yeah, absolutely. Sorry to interrupt. I think that's it. Yeah, I mean, you're right. I think that's where it comes from for sure. And it's unfortunate because it's difficult, I'm sure, as a band director to really keep that sense of almost more free, or naive musicality driven mindset, while you're also trying to teach them what fifth position is, So I get that, but like you have to not abandon it, but you have to like learn to develop both of them at the same time. And what you're talking about, like learning to kind of have your own opinions on music and connect with it and give it meaning. I've called that in the past, like taking ownership of your musicality or of your artistry. It's like don't just play a crescendo because that's what's printed on the page. Figure out why that crescendo is there, what purpose it serves, and then figure out what you think of it. Maybe you don't even like that it's there. Maybe you think it's a stupid fucking crescendo. But, like, you need to have some opinion about it, you know? And something that's more than just, it says crescendo, so I will crescendo, you know?
I am getting louder now. Now I am getting softer.
Right.
I just won music.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And yeah, it's like, how do you teach that? It's like, that sounds like some, like, you know, like Kung Fu Panda where the scroll is blank. That's what that sounds like, you know? The music was in you all along. You know, just like, okay, I mean, I don't know. Sorry.
Well, that's
good.
The thing, though. That's the challenge for a good teacher, right? Bringing back, keeping all those elements that make you a natural while making you better and not losing that. I mean, that's, you know, getting off the music. I mean, so much what we do in teaching Western music, right, is like rules, right? Especially in classical music. It's like, that's the challenge, right?
Yeah. Well, you know, I like to think of rules as the stage that you set for the dance that you're about to perform, right? It's like nothing really like, you know, if you take free jazz, even free jazz probably has some unspoken rules, you know, if you really dig into it. Because to have no rules would be to play any pitch or no pitch at all, you know, any time constraint, like, you know, you wouldn't even necessarily have to be
I don't know.
sound.
I could show you some Sun Ra videos that definitely don't have any rules.
I know that, but I mean,
pretty...
like humans are pattern seekers. Like, there's even if like you know, if you talk to a philosophy major, I'm sure they could break down how music is a social construct or whatever the fuck, you know, like so like everything has rules, and so I get like how it can feel constricting. I've had students that basically told me that they want to, you know, be the next Beatles, but they're playing tuba, and I'm like, I think you're on the wrong instrument, buddy. You know, like. You might want to learn the rules of classical music first and then break them.
I don't know. I mean, what about someone like Lizzo?
You're true.
Yeah, it's like...
I mean, that's true. Sorry,
someone
I didn't mean
probably
to
told
imply
her,
that,
like, you want to play the flute?
Why are you trying to limit this tuba player's dream?
Now, euphonium.
No.
That's Beatles.
I didn't mean
euphonium.
to, like,
You're right.
You're right. No, to explain, I didn't mean, like, if he was playing the Beatles or he's doing his own band thing, it's that he wanted to play, like, he wanted to put his own very creative interpretation on something like the Lebedev. You know what I mean? It's like, no, that's kind of not how that goes. You know, like, it's not even the right note. Yeah.
Oh.
But you know, honestly, maybe that is snobbish of me. Maybe I should have let him play the Lebedev however the hell he wanted. Like, it's not written in the stars that you have to play a natural at the beginning.
Oh, okay.
That's a whole...
Yeah, that's a whole thing. I don't even... Woo.
Yeah.
That would be another podcast.
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
anyway,
yeah.
We did want to talk to you about, and I think, whatever, let's talk about whatever we want, but Nick and I were curious about what your Tchaikovsky competition experience was like in Russia. Speaking of Russia so much.
Yeah.
Right, yeah, I gotta come full circle to that. That was one of the most, if not the most, like, kind of crazy, intense musical experiences I've had, or really life experiences. You know,
explain like what it is and how rare it is. Like,
so it's rare in that there's only ever been one Tchaikovsky competition that included brass, and they just did it, and Gergiev conducted with the Met, and he's like the head of the Tchaikovsky president or whatever, right? And so, like, I talked to him a bit. Paul and Weston kind of, like, Paul basically, like, tried to convince me to go and bribe him to let me win, and I could not tell if he was joking. But you know,
joking is half truth, as they say.
Right, yeah. But anyway, so I talked to him, and he's like, yeah, we added $2 million. Or he was basically like, I asked the board for $2 million and they gave it to me. So now there's a competition with brass and woodwinds. And I'm just like, cool. I wish I didn't know it was that easy, you know?
Yeah.
Like, so anyway, yeah, so there's that. If you know, you don't know what it is, it's basically like one of the biggest worldwide competitions that, you know, started with just piano. Van Cliburn from Fort Worth famously won it, I think, as the first American pianist to win. Yeah, so they churn out like major names and start solo careers for people who win, and there's a lot of money in it. Like, I think if you win the Grand Prix, you win first prize, which is like $50,000, and then an additional $150,000 on top of that for the Grand Prix. So it's and you get like a 3-year contract, like, to tour around with different orchestras and whatnot. So it's pretty swanky. It's like very high level. I think, you know, there's like cameras, and like there's like handlers who like take you from like room to room and stuff, like, because it's a real TV show. And like there were like 2 million people watching for like, I think the prelims or semis or something. They told us that before, like right before I went on. I'm like, why would you tell me that?
Yeah,
so, like,
right.
So I'm like shaking there because, like, you know, it's like it's hard to, and that's actually when I decided that I needed beta blockers, because like I'd never taken them, or I'd taken someone's, I tried like half of someone else's pill to see like how, it affected me. And I was like, I don't feel like it's like as bad as people talked about. Like, yeah, I didn't feel nervous, but like people say like, oh, it kills your musical drive. And I'm like, I mean, listen to the recording, it sounded fine, And I know this is a hot button issue. I've had people literally jump up and tell me I'm wrong for even mentioning them in the middle of a masterclass before.
That's such bullshit. I'm sorry. I mean, like, first of all, it's no one's business but yours if you're going to take something for an audition. And just like with any drug, or like any medicine, like it's no one's business. And like, why is this the time to get principled about like, I don't take anything, and like what?
I think
so
some people
ridiculous.
think of it as almost like steroids for musicians, and then they get weirdly like they think it's cheating or something,
It's bullshit. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Like steroids for musicians is fucking LSD or something,
And
if you can put an audition on LSD, you deserve to win.
Yeah, you deserve to win.
You have a lot more drug addicts.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm not advocating for that, by the way, just for legal reasons.
Oh, this episode already has a parental advisory, don't worry.
Yeah.
Oh, good. Yeah, but like Tchaikovsky competition, from the beginning, it was like this big kind of production, right? Like it felt like I had suddenly been upgraded to essentially like actor level or something, because like when we got visas, and also my wife went with me, which was cool. We went to Paris afterwards, but we got humanitarian visas. So when we show up to the airport in like Amsterdam or something, after I think it was like New York, Boston, Amsterdam, St. Petersburg. It was like a 24-hour like journey basically. But like when we get to Amsterdam, there's someone there to like take us specifically to like the next airplane, and they held the airplane for us because our flight was delayed slightly. And I'm just like, what the fuck is this? Like it was very swanky, but also like it's like every single step, like being waved to the front of the visa line because we're humanitarians. Wow. It was really bizarre, and it really like I think it just if I had kind of known what I was getting into, I think I might not have been as nervous, or I might have prepared a little differently. And also Ian Bousfield, like for the people who made the semis, he was like I think kind of the head of the brass division, maybe unofficially. So he's talking to us, and he's basically like, don't fuck this up. You're representing all of the brass world right now, and the shit I heard in the prelims, just like kind of laying into us. And I'm like, what the fuck is going on? Like, anyway, so like it was this just insane environment. It's hard to describe how weird it felt being there. And also, by the way, I'm like, 14 hours off my like sleep cycle, It's in the middle of summer, and it's very high latitude. So nighttime starts at like midnight or 1 a.m. and ends at like 5 a.m. If that, like, it's basically 3 hours of twilight. It doesn't ever, the sky never goes dark. They don't need street lights like in the summer. It's that light. And so like, it was hard to sleep in the first place because of jet lag. So, it was like everyone was tired. My pianist, Kelly Lynn, who was fantastic, by the way, she was running on 1 hour of sleep because she had to roommate with another pianist, and she snored. I think it was some Russian lady. So like 1 hour sleep for like a week straight, and just back to back, like prelims, then semis, and like, it was just a whirlwind. And so by the time when we ended up losing, we all went to the bar, like the nearest bar near the thing, and drank until the bar closed, which was basically daytime at that point at like 4 a.m. or whatever. And that's where my famous Russian walk sign photo comes from being dejected and drunk as fuck and doing the blue steel to compensate for my shattered ego.
There's no drink that tastes quite as good as one like right after an audition.
Oh my God. Especially when you didn't win. It's like, I deserve this. So
I had a couple of those with you, Sebastian, after my Pittsburgh Symphony audition.
That night's hazy.
Yeah. Good.
Bad.
I'm visualizing you getting ushered to the front of these lines in the airport in the plane. I just really hope you were like wearing sweatpants and like
absolutely
flip-flops.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure I was
who is
wearing
this guy?
flip-flops, yeah. I'm not wearing fucking shoes on like a 24-hour trip. You kidding me?
That's always my goal in life. Every time I'm upgraded to first class, I'm always wearing like a sweatsuit or sweatpants because my whole goal is to
what you need?
Be next to all these business people and be like, well, who is this?
You need
guy?
to have like the like tuxedo T-shirt and sweatpants.
There you go.
But like specifically like act like you just got upgraded accidentally or something, and then like while you're in first class, take your old shirt off and put that one on. Like, oh, guess you're better dressed for the occasion.
Exactly.
Wow, this is nice.
Right.
These drinks free?
Oh my God.
Wow.
Right, yeah.
This is my first time on an aeroplane.
Yeah. You know, honestly, that's kind of what it felt like getting to New York. And like, you know, one of the first things people ask me is like, oh, have you bought a house yet? And I'm like, hold the fuck up. I haven't gotten my money yet. You know what I mean? Like,
Right.
it's like,
Totally.
you know, just like, you know, cost of living does even, I think actually when I did the calculation between like Fort Worth and here, I'm not making that much more money, you know, because it's really expensive to live here. But yeah, I think just it is more money physically. And so like you can have your Xbox, you know, and your PS5 and a PC or whatever, right? It's just you can't have a house because housing is fucking ridiculous. So, you know, I'll live in my car.
Like a studio apartment
For
studio apartment.
$500,000.
Yeah, clearly I'm not doing well
Yeah.
for myself. So
Hey, that studio is sweet.
yeah, it's nice.
You have a concert hall behind you. I mean, that's
exactly.
amazing.
Yeah, it's like one of those optical illusions. It looks like it's just a tapestry, but it actually goes back like several thousand feet. You know,
Yeah. And it can seat like 3,000 people.
right? Yeah, right in my home studio.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And you have 3,000 people like locked in there at all times that will listen to your recitals.
right,
Sounds
right.
like an
yeah.
episode of Black Mirror.
Yeah. Yeah. I have like one of those the copies of people that what are they called? Cookies.
Right.
Cookies.
Oh, yeah.
That is like the most trippy shit because it's 100% physically possible, like technologically possible. Which to me makes me think that is actually inevitable. But that's a whole other podcast, you know.
Maybe
So-
we're the people in someone else's head.
That's a legitimate theory. That's simulation theory.
Yeah, we're like the Earth on the back of the turtle's turtle shell.
Yeah. Yeah.
Welcome
but
to-
the other thing about the Tchaikovsky competition is
I was about to say, I know John could go way deeper
Yeah.
with this if he wanted to.
oh, absolutely 100%. But I'll try to restrain myself. But like, so the other thing that was like really kind of crazy about working on the Tchaikovsky competition was that it was an hour and a half of music, most of which I had never worked on. So, you know, like basically 2 recitals worth of music.
What were the solos again?
I don't remember all of them, but the ones I played were Grandal, Pergolesi Sinfonia in F major, Basta, oh my God, Mozart, Leopold Mozart Alto Concerto, and then there was some Russian piece that I think was just called like Concertino or something, and I can't remember the name of it, but it was actually a really nice piece. It's like very romantic, very Tchaikovsky-esque. Oh, and an arrangement by Christian Lindbergh of Tchaikovsky's Queen of Spades Suite, and just like that one was like, it was like a 20-minute arrangement. And it was at the end of the second round. And by the time we got to it, everyone, like after Basta and an alto concerto, everyone was dead tired. Like even Peter Steiner, like had to take stuff down an octave in Queen of Spades. So just to give you an idea of how like strenuous the whole competition was.
Because they're used to like having pianists audition and stuff. They're like, oh, you just give them an hour's worth of rep.
Right.
They'll be fine.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I really hope if and when they do it again, which I guess isn't guaranteed, but I'll still be eligible under the age limit if they do it again in 2023. So I'm hoping they do it, and hoping I get in because I want a shot at that. You know, I want my 50 grand, man. You know, want my first prize. But you know, hopefully
they can buy a 2-bedroom apartment.
right.
Yeah.
No. What I get is a second box. You know. In New
Yeah.
York.
Right.
But yeah.
But speaking of other podcasts, I definitely want to. If you want to hang out again, we're going to start a side podcast. With the Patreon, and there's one where I just want to dive into winning the audition, just breaking down the process and like what you did. So if you ever want to just hang out and talk about like your Met experience,
Yeah, great.
that'd be super cool.
I love talking
I'll
about
harass
myself
you for that.
and winning.
Well, we like hearing about
Yeah.
it. There's a lot of interesting things. I could move into some rapid fire questions, Nick.
Do it.
Okay. All right, just a couple. What advice would you give to your 18-year-old self?
Take a fucking break sometimes. Like, I never thought of myself as the kind of person who would end up being a workaholic type, but I guilted my way into it. And that whole, like, if you're not practicing, someone else is, that whole mentality is bad, and you should not think that way. And you should, even if you do, you should at least, like, plan breaks, because this is a physical instrument. Like, it, you know, like, I actually got a lip injury after 4 years of just beating my face up, sometimes playing, like, 10 hours a day, 4 hours of practice a day. It's like, that's a great kind of, like, grind set to get into, I think is what the kids are calling it. But you need rest. You have to. And mentally I burned out, like I said. So like, yeah, just take a break sometimes and, go play a video game or hang out with people or something.
If you could be a musician in any other genre, what would it be?
Progressive rock and/or metal. Actually, when I was a freshman, I was seriously debating transferring to Berkeley for rock guitar. I was going to learn how to shred and start a band like Dream Theater.
Oh, Dream.
Oh, man.
Oh.
Dream Theater.
Or Coed in
You
Cambria.
play guitar?
Yeah. I can show you my guitar
wow.
if you're going to get the video.
Oh, nice.
Yeah,
Nice.
well, it's not here, but whatever. I'll show you later.
That's
my camera's shitty.
Coed in Cambria. That's some like emo rock.
Yeah.
That's a vibe, right?
Yeah, I actually I learned like the entirety of their discography for their first two albums back when I started picking up guitar. And some of it's like the guys like Claudio Sanchez, that was my hair goals, I want to get it like down to here, But like he sings and plays over that stuff, and some of it's extremely rhythmically complex. Like it's as hard as like, playing drums, it feels like. But anyway,
what is most important to you in life?
Oh man. That is a really hard question. I guess I would say the most important thing in my life is pursuing a better self for myself, like pursuing my own self-betterment, pursuing my own happiness, and doing so for the purpose of making the world a better place. I know that sounds like super like world peace, but like, honestly, I think that would probably maybe be like
the new Mr. America.
Right. Yeah.
John Romero.
Lucille.
Yeah, there you go. Ooh.
Yeah. No, but I gotta like whip my hair around, Yeah. But no, I mean, like, I think I was trying to maybe phrase it the other way, like, what's the worst thing that I would want to happen, which is to kind of just like become stagnant and never learn new things and never, pick up new hobbies or meet new people, and just to kind of exist and never grow. I don't know. That just seemed kind of, I just don't want that for myself, and I'm not saying like I don't want peace and less drama in the world would be fantastic, but like,
yeah. You're a principal in the Met now. That means you don't have to try and get better at anything else for the rest of your life. Don't you know that?
I got really good at being a couch potato last year. So, that's a new skill.
Yeah. Last question from me. Favorite opera you've played so far?
Oh, that is a good question. That's really hard because I kind of have like favorite operas to play and then favorite operas to listen to.
How about one?
So I guess I'll just answer that. So the favorite one to play so far, I think, was Otello. It's like a toss-up between Wozzeck and Otello because like they're both like super hard and it feels really good when you nail a lick. And also I got to do E-pull and do like F to E trills, and that was like, I don't know, it was really fun. And then but to listen to would be probably that's a tie between La Boheme and Tosca. Like I really liked a lot of like particularly with oh my god, who's the guy who did it when I first came here? He has like this really bright kind of warbly voice, very warm. He's very tall. But he's his like version of Mario was like the first time I ever like really heard a tenor live that I was just like, holy shit. That's like some amazing singing.
Yeah. Do you ever, when I played Otello and other Verdi operas, I mean, do you ever have the urge of like, man, I wonder what this would be like on the valve trombone, like it was written for? Like, because all the crazy hard licks are just like chromatic for the most part.
Yeah, I can play valves, but chromatics are not my thing. So I'm kind of glad that I have the slide. But yeah, it would definitely be. I think it would actually sound more authentic for sure on valve trombone. But I'm just not sure. We're going to get a whole section in the Met to learn valves and to then learn how to play on valve trombone well enough to actually sound better than slide trombone or equivalent to rather. So I just don't think it's going to happen.
Yeah.
It usually comes like, 'cause I know some places in Europe do it. I think it usually comes from a conductor. It's like, I want this on valve trombones, and then you're like,
that's not going to happen at the Met. They told me during tenure, like, you're not getting tenure if you mention the word valve to Yannick at all. So like, they don't want to do it. And Paul's trying to like, shove the bass trumpet part to me on the ring cycle. Oh, by the way, that's another thing I was going to mention. I was working on that hour and a half of music for the Tchaikovsky competition during the ring cycle. So, that was hard. Yeah.
I imagine you felt in shape by the end of that.
I felt like dead, but afterwards I felt in shape. I mean, yeah, the next year, because, that was my first year, I think, at the Met, first season. Yeah, I don't think I ever felt tired. I felt like I could play anything. So, at least there was that.
One more question I'll add. Because I mean, one of the greatest parts about that job is you're consistently hearing some of the greatest singers in the world on a daily basis. Have there been any singers that just like blew you away that you still think about?
Yeah, I'm terrible with names, so I forget their names. I mean, Anna Netrebko sounds great, and there was the Italian national treasure, who is no longer with us at the Met for reasons. But people thought he was really annoying as a singer, and I can see why, because he was
Italian national treasure.
Yeah, that's what he called himself.
Yeah. I know you're talking. about.
Yeah,
I know you're talking. About.
But he was like, I liked it in some ways because it was like the epitome of kind of being over the top and like almost soap opera-y. And I'm like, that's what opera should be sometimes, And I feel like these people are trying way too hard on silly shit to like sound super serious and professional. And I'm just like, this guy's just like going to town doing whatever he wants. It's amazing, I don't know. I kind of admired that attitude, even if it was 100% coming from a narcissistic place,
I'm trying to remember his name right now. It's driving me nuts because I've played with him too.
Tenor's got a tenor.
Right.
Do you remember his name right now, John?
No.
It's
unfortunately.
Vittorio Grigolo.
That's it. Yeah.
Vittorio Grigolo.
Are you sure he's Italian?
Yeah.
Get some mozzarella. Do some New Jersey Italian stuff.
Have we offended enough cultures in this podcast yet? Any other ones we want to hit? Okay, Nick.
Okay, here's my question, John. What do students not do enough of that they need to do more of?
Practice. No, I'm sorry. Sorry, I couldn't help myself.
No one's actually said that answer ever.
Practice, nerds.
I mean, honestly, I think that is the answer for a lot of them, frankly,
I mean, an aspect of that.
And it's like, anyway, but so serious answer to the question. I think, one thing that students could do more of that I notice is, I guess, kind of going back to that taking ownership of the music thing, playing something as if you like it or as if you have an opinion on it, I just don't get that a lot. It really sounds, and I get why, because they're coming to me knowing that I'm going to critique what they're playing, right? But I feel like it would just be nice to hear more students come in and kind of actually have enough of an opinion about especially a solo that they're playing to be like, no, actually I like it this way and here's why, this recording, blah, blah, blah. And just have that kind of knowledge base. Not that I did that and I understand why that might seem disrespectful, but at least me as a teacher, I try to make sure my students know if it's at all a musical opinion, that's subjective and therefore you can disregard what I say if you think you have a better opinion. And, I'll never fault anyone for that because it is subjective. Maybe it's dumb for them to play it the way they're playing, and I think that, but who knows?
That's a good answer. I like that. Thanks so much for being on, John. Appreciate it. And I'm going to be back in New York on Monday, and I think I'm playing with you on Tuesday. Maybe no, I don't know. I'm playing with you sometime this upcoming week. So
yeah,
they make apps for that'll help you keep track.
My phone's over there. I'd have to look. I'm playing some Meister Singer, I think. Is that this week? I don't know. I'm playing something.
I just show up. Whatever's on the stand, I'll play it. It's all good.
Right.
John Romero, thanks for hanging out.
Yeah, absolutely.
It was awesome having you at the retreat, too. We didn't even talk about that.
Yeah.
Sorry, I was trying to find the guy that was talking about one of the tenors. But, yeah, I can't find it. Anyway, yeah, it was good.
If you figured out, you can tell us later, and we'll talk about it.
I'll do it. Bohem, it would 20.
Just insert that TikTok voice, the tenor is there. Yeah.
Okay, let's see here.
This is what happens every time I tell my cat.
Oh my, yeah.
It's food.
Where did that come from? Why is that a thing?
Oh my, I have a lot of questions about TikTok.
Again, another podcast.
I can answer them.
Nick is the official TikTok person of the trombone retreat, even though we don't have an account.
I'm the TikToker.
Nice. You do TikTok, man. I need to break into that.
No, you do not.
Yeah.
Trust me.
I have so many good ideas. Most of them involving vodka, though.
Didn't we talk about starting a YouTube channel called Bottom
That's
Shelf?
Right. Yeah. I still need to get on that. I need to write that down because that was such a good idea.
So basically the premise is you only drink, basically it's like a rating show for just the worst, all the cheap,
right,
cheapest
Canadian
vodkas on the bottom shelf.
$7 for a liter of whiskey.
In college, there was always that vodka that stayed in your freezer for months, just in case for parties. If you just ran out of everything, oh yeah, we have that.
Right, yeah. Or God forbid, Fireball whiskey.
Oh, I love
I still have
Fireball,
friends that
dude.
drink that. Ugh.
It's just that it was like always like the cheapest brand, for me. That's what got me. Like,
Was it Michael Fabiano?
oh, the brand? I don't remember.
No, the tenor.
No, the
Oh,
singer.
No, it starts with a C, and it's like I can't remember. I'd have to like find him like on the listing, and I can't do that for some reason.
So Nick, to explain to you how my brain works, it's very similar to John's. Like when John was trying to remember this conductor, he's like, "Oh yeah, he was tall and he was like this and he spoke like this." Like I'll remember every aspect of someone like that, but I'll never remember their names.
Yeah,
and I don't think that makes me a bad person, Nick.
Sometimes you got to remember names.
I think people think
That's
it
what
makes
you're
you a bad
for.
person, and that's unfortunate because I'm the same way. I legitimately think it's like a brain thing. Like my brain literally, someone will tell me their name, and in the middle of their name, I'll have already forgotten it. And I'm even thinking,
Same.
because I know this, I'm thinking, remember their name, remember their name, remember their name. Shit, what was it again? It's like, it's like water through my fingers.
Oh yeah, didn't you call me Steve on
I
the
did,
second day
yeah.
of the retreat?
I knew, well, see, I remember the first letter. I can remember the first letter of everyone's name. I just can never remember, like, the other ones.
I feel that. I feel that.
This is a legitimate
Same.
mental disorder, and I think it's about time we made accommodations for it. Okay, this is ableism. If you call me out
Yeah.
for not knowing your name,
Let's start a support group.
yeah,
You guys are silly.
yeah.
Okay, I'm ending this podcast.
All right, bye.
Now, Sebastian, why do you think that was one of our more fun interviews? Do you think it's because
Well-
we just hung out with them, or what is it?
I mean, I think all of our interviews are fun, first of all.
Of course they are.
But I mean, anyone that knows John or sees him on social media knows he's very open, and he's got a lot of brilliant ideas and very opinionated ideas, and he's just fun to be around. And it relates to his playing. You see a lot of people's personality in their playing, right? Someone who's very outgoing tends to be that way in their playing a lot of the time. And you definitely see that the way he plays, he just kind of goes for it, which is awesome. And it really fits a principal position in an opera. But yeah, I mean, I think there's always a level of comfort, right? Like the person being interviewed, sometimes if they don't know us well, it takes a minute for them to kind of open up. But, like with David Binder, with like people that know us really well that we've made fun of in past, it's just like, just jump into it.
Someone just brought up that David Binder interview. His Koichiro brought up listening about he's gotten really into the bagel bite.
Yeah, he sent us both like a meme at like 2 a.m. it was a video of the Bagel Bites song.
Yeah,
right?
the original commercial. Yeah. Which is a work of art if you've never seen it. But circling back to John, yeah, did you know that he has 2 middle names?
No.
There are no punches held and hot
that's-
take. Those are his middle names.
Oh, No Punches Held is one name.
Mm-hmm. It's all smushed
Nope.
together.
John No Punches Held Hot Take Romero.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
That's amazing how his mom just knew that
She
he'd be like that.
looked at him. She's like, this is a guy who's going to speak his mind. But you know what? Like, he does it in a respectful way, like on these forums and stuff. And while not mincing his words, it's like, it's pretty straightforward, like how he feels about certain things. And the honest truth is he has the goods to back up whatever he's talking about. I mean, he's a
And
hell
the
of a
hair.
player. And the hair. I mean, the hair has been I played this Mahler 2 concert with them, and Paul Pollard posted a picture of the section, Instagram or Facebook or whatever it was, and multiple people commented on the hair situation in the Met trombone section. I mean, me as a guest as well. Paul has gone full caveman style with the hair. It's crazy. It's awesome.
He looks like a hillbilly.
We love you, Paul. Dr. Hillbilly to you. And John definitely has that Bob Ross-esque thing going on.
Some of my students discovered Bob Ross, which I think is amazing because how old they are. And I also had the realization lately that I've been playing the trombone longer than my undergrad students have been alive, which I don't know how I feel about that.
I don't feel good about it personally.
I don't feel great about it, but they did discover Bob Ross, which I love. And they've had Bob Ross painting parties. I don't know if I've mentioned this before.
Oh,
And so they have Bob Ross painting parties, and I have multiple paintings in my studio, and I cherish them.
Sorry to turn that into something dark, I guess, but have you seen the Bob Ross documentary about kind of like his life?
No. Is it good?
It's very good. I mean, he was a good guy. Don't get me no spoilers, but he was a good guy. But people, when his success started taking off, people started taking advantage of him. And that's really unfortunate because like what he did for the world, I think, obviously, I mean, it stood the test of time. He died 20 years ago or something like that. And he's still, people are having painting parties at watching his videos. I mean, that's awesome.
Welcome to the Bob Ross podcast.
We're just going to put a happy little tree over here. It'll be you and my little secret.
What if, you know how they do podcasts where they just follow, they do a podcast on each episode of a show, like following a series? What if we just did a podcast on every single one of Bob Ross's episodes, which are like all the same. It's just like a different setting he's painting.
We're going to draw a happy little mountain today.
Oh, he's going for it.
Oh!
Do it, Bob.
Oh, no, you didn't. Oh, a happy little mistake over here. Okay, getting off the Bob Ross train. Sebastian, what is it like being back to work playing, back to work teaching, back to work boning, back to work? Okay, you can take that one out.
Well, now I have to leave it in. I mean, it's good.
Wow, that's it? Oh, it's good. Oh.
No, it's been nice. It's like that perfect like pocket of weather in Pittsburgh right now where it's like 70s and sunny every day, and it's just never long enough. And I want it to stay forever.
I know.
But yeah, things are good. Teaching's nice. All the organizations are starting to get busy again. Going to Harrisburg this weekend, playing some pictures at an exhibition, some other things. Yeah, I mean, life's good, man. Football's happening. Should we have a fantasy sports podcast as part of the trombone retreat? You guys want my hot fantasy advice from the multi-time champion? Did I tell you my fantasy team name?
No.
Sexual Tyrannosaurus.
That's pretty good.
You ever seen Predator?
Yeah.
Predator, by the way, if any of our young listeners have never seen Predator, turn this podcast off immediately and go to your local Blockbuster.
Name one movie that has a bodybuilder and a professional wrestler that went on to become the governor of California and the governor of Minnesota.
You can't.
You can't.
Two future governors in that movie. I wish I could have placed a prop bet on that to happen.
What would the over under be on that one?
But there's a moment where Jesse, the Body Ventura wrestler, he asks him something and he just responds like, "Course, I'm a goddamn sexual tyrannosaurus."
I forgot about that line. Oh.
Yeah, and that is my fantasy football team name. I'm glad. Yeah.
Does he say it to who says it? Jesse says it.
Yeah, Jesse says it. It's delivered. It's delivered with brilliance and confidence and clarity. It's just he's a poet.
Would you say it's a wall of art and acting?
Wow. I like that. A wall of art and acting. Wow, that's good. So John was brilliant this summer at the retreat. Awesome to listen to. So many good things to say to our students. I think everyone really joined him. He gave a kick-ass recital. We're going to have video of that we're going to post. He composes.
Yeah, which we didn't get into in the podcast. I mean, there's enough to dive into with his stuff. But yeah, he's a great composer. Wow, that's it. Nailed it.
No, but it's cool seeing like a young person that, in trombone years, that he's at the beginning of his career, and that's a destination job. He, who knows, he could be there for a very long time. And it's cool just seeing him be excited about everything that's happening and finding his place in New York and getting used to it. I think he had never even really spent any time in New York City before winning that position. So that can be a culture shock.
Yeah, I think he came here for school auditions, and I think that was about it. That's a lot to take in.
And you just got home, right? Like you've been bopping around everywhere.
I've been bopping as much as the Big Bopper bopped back in the 50s. Nothing? Wow. Okay. Wow. Sebastian's really hard today. He's hard to crack. Since the trombone retreat, I went straight to Seattle, played Valkyrie out there, little opera. And then came back here to New York for 2 weeks. Well, 1 week, and then I went to Detroit for like 4 days, and then drove back from Detroit to New York, and then was here for one day, and then flew to Seattle and played 2 weeks out there. Played their opening week gala, some Firebird and Don Juan, and then last week played the Renish.
Do you prefer to say gala or gala?
Gala.
Do you have any strong opinions? Gala.
Mm-hmm. I will die on that hill. No, I mean, it was great. I mean, I played out there, 4 or 5 years ago, played Alpine Symphony, which I found out was recorded and released as a CD. It's on the Spotify's and the titles.
Nobody buys CDs, don't worry.
Well, just go on the Spotify's. Seattle Symphony, Alpine Symphony, and I'm laying down some third trombone. And anyway, it's great. And, you know, our lovely dear friend Koichiro Yamamoto plays out there. Sounded fantastic the whole 2 weeks playing. You know, played alto trombone and Renish, sounded fantastic. You know, as we all know, that is very difficult. So props to him.
But Ko, if you're listening, I just have one question. What happened, man?
Yeah, what happened?
What?
It was on. I think it was Thursday. Yeah, what happened?
The first thing Ko said to me, and I was getting to know Ko. I've known him a little bit from the interview, and we had hung out briefly at ITF. But when he came to the trombone retreat, I just played my recital. It went okay, and the first thing he said when he came up to me, and this is Ko's way of like complimenting you or like giving you shit, but I didn't quite know it at the time, and so his first thing was like, "What happened? What,
yeah,
Sebastian? What happened?" So now I'm like trying to do that to people now, which I really like. But you got to pull it off well. It's a nuanced thing, and you got to have a level of trust. There's a lot of zingers you can do to people. What's the recent one I heard? I think you said it. Like you go up to someone after a concert, and you said like, "Wow, like yeah, you should have been out there." Like,
yeah, you should have been in the audience. Like, yeah.
No, you really should have been out there.
That's our third horn player in the ballet. That's his line. I have to give credit to him. So
it's like, I really like what you're trying to do there.
Yeah. Or the Mike Lorman one where he looks you dead in the eye and he's like, man, it's so easy to play with you. Like really in tune. And the whole time he's pushing out his tuning slide while he's talking to you. That's a really good one.
One I like that he does, I'm going to play with him this week. And he was like whenever you're on a gig with someone, pick like a random number that's like twice as much as you know everyone's getting paid and be like, can you believe we're only getting paid $800 for this? But like say it super seriously to the person. If you enjoyed the podcast, please consider being a patron on patreon.com/trombone retreat and leaving us a rating and review on iTunes. If you want to leave a question or topic you'd like us to discuss, we may answer it on the podcast. Follow us at Trombone Retreat on all the social medias. Help us get to 2,000 on Instagram, as it will really help our self-esteem. And our website, tromboneretreat.com, where you can also join our mailing list and send us an email, as we love hearing from you. On Instagram, follow Nick at basstrombone444 and myself at js.vera. And as always,
if life gets tough, put on your best pair of loafers, go down to your local shoe shine, put on your dancing hat.
Go ahead and retreat yourself. You didn't say haberdashery that time. That's good.
I almost did because I said haberdashery last time, didn't I?
That's one of your favorite locations.
I love a hat. I love a good. I call them habs.